here for Mondays.
Dear cancel culture, can we cancel this whole year? Maybe just wake up and it all disappear. First came Kobe, then came COVID. Wouldn't believe it if you told it. Not to mention cops still shooting us out here. Cancel culture, can we cancel this whole year?
Yes, thank you all for tuning in with me. Yes, whether you're listening to me in the day, the night, the morning, or whatever time of the day you are listening, I really appreciate you all listening. Yes, this is the Creative Lips Podcast. Yes, this is the Creative Lips Podcast, guys. And, I got my episodes mixed up. Damn, that Mercury retrograde. Damn. Yes, this is episode number 62, guys. Yes, it is. Yes, episode number 62. And I appreciate all of the new listeners and all of the active listeners. Yes, I appreciate you all listening today, tonight, and just like I said, whatever the time of day you are listening. Yes, guys. And today's episode is going to be, I'm going to be talking about a topic that is very sad and very, tragic for some. The small businesses closure. Yes. Yes, I'm going to be talking about that. Talking about my opinion. In regards to that, guys, just very sad. Can we cancel that? You know what I'm saying? Can we cancel that? You know what I'm saying? But however, I just like to start off my episodes, before I get into, talking about this topic today, guys. I like to start off my episodes, all of my episodes, no matter what I'm talking about. I like to start off all of my episodes with a positive words of affirmations, guys. Yes. Some people like to hear positive words, on a daily basis, or every now and again, just to get that little bit of pick me up. You know what I'm saying? We need that. Whether it could be coming from your significant other, it could be coming from a family member or friend, or even sometimes we got to talk to our damn self. You know what I'm saying? Yes, sometimes we need to encourage ourselves, just to give us that, words of endearment, So I like to start off by saying that if, you are listening, whoever is listening to this episode, only you know what you are going through, what is faced before you, whatever trials, whatever situation, whatever it may be. Only you know what it is. Only you know that. I hope that you will make it out of that situation. It will work out in your favor. And it will happen in perfect timing, guys. Yes, perfect timing. The way that you want it to be made out in your favor, guys. In the end. Yes, guys. Yes. All right. So now let's get into it now. Just like I said, today's topic, I'm going to be talking about the small business closures are happening right now at a quick rate. Yes, it is. At the very beginning of this pandemic, it was an estimated of over 180,000. It's probably more than that, but over 180,000 small businesses closed down permanently. Ouch. Man, that's fucked up. Right along with the brick and mortars, small mom and pop shops, your favorite round the way spot that you used to go in the morning or at night or after work just to pick up something that you like. You know what I'm saying? They are closing at a rapid rate. And right along with that, big companies are going bankrupt. Yes. Companies that has been around for centuries. It was mentioned Century 21, Lloyd and Taylor's. Yes, Lloyd and Taylor's. They are going bankrupt at a record pace. Nevertheless, closures are going to be well above normal, because we are in a disastrous economic situation, guys. Yes. So when small businesses close, an entire sector of the economy suffers. There is a lower cash flow, higher debt, and more unemployment. Yes, more unemployment. Those rates are high. Those are in the millions. Even though they come out with a report every month, stating that the numbers are getting lower, but however, I believe that the numbers are still going to be high going into the end of the year and the beginning of 2021. That's my opinion, but however, that leads to a big drag on the eventual recovery, because small businesses are really an important source of, the jobs within your community. Losing them the way we are losing them now is going to make things far worse than they otherwise need to be. Yes. Small businesses depend heavily on that foot traffic, and they operate on thin margins. They are especially vulnerable to the ripple effects of the widespread shutdowns. When it was time to open back up for some businesses with another setback due to COVID-19 restrictions, some businesses had to close permanently after studying their restaurant's layout. It was determined that some kitchens and restaurants would never be safe for multiple staff members to occupy at once while the virus was still active in certain areas. Yes. Like New York, for instance, they have different zones, different COVID zones. I know Brooklyn, they had, it's different color coded zones where I know is red, meaning that it's the high rate of COVID virus cases. Yes. And, some businesses could not afford those renovations, so in turn they had to close down permanently. It's a shame. That's messed up, whatever the specific reasons that certain businesses may, have the closure, certain businesses had to close because of, just like I said, the restaurant layout, or it just could be, slow foot traffic in the area. A lot of people are staying home. You get some people, the fear mongers, evidence appearing real. You know what I'm saying? You get some of them, they want to stay home. They don't want to go out to their favorite shops, what they used to. And, you're getting a lot of people teleworking from home. They're doing that now as we speak. And, whether, the specific reasons, just like I said, Justin Norman, Yelp's vice president of data service, said that the federal government should offer small business help, like the PPP money. Yes, like that money that they were handing out. Mr. Norman said Yelp was concerned about the effects of small businesses closures, especially those owned by the black people, black culture, and the black community. And of course, even around, the different society within the black culture. It was stated that 95% of black-owned businesses could not get the Paycheck Protection Program loan, the PPP loan. No. It was said that was the numbers, but the PPP loan is, designated to provide a direct incentive for small businesses to keep their workers on payroll. Now, Small Business Administration will forgive the loan for all employees' retention criteria, if it's met, and the funds are used for eligible expenses within that business. And they were actually counting for that, so that can keep their businesses afloat, for their employees. I know there was a small shop not too far from me. It's a coffee shop. It's a black-owned business. And they almost went under. Yes, they almost went under, but they did a GoFundMe. And the person who owns the shop is, well known. The coffee shop is called Uncle Bobby's. Yes, it is. And they did a GoFundMe and they raised enough, and they actually surpassed what they were anticipated in asking the general public to help keep that coffee shop afloat. And they are still operating and running. But, just like I said, the foot traction, where people come in and out. Sometimes people like to sit in coffee shops where, they had seating where you can buy a book or you can bring in your laptop or, just chill out and hang out and drink a coffee or eat the vegan, muffins, the good vegan muffins that they have down there. Yes, at that coffee shop at Uncle Bobby's. I'm giving them a plug right now. If you're ever in Philadelphia, yes, visit Uncle Bobby's coffee shop. Yes, visit them. Yes, pull up. Yes, dope coffee shop. And, small businesses like that, they suffered. They suffered a lot. And then they had to take out the PPP, loan just so that they can keep their businesses afloat. A lot of businesses were shut out of this loan, just like I said, a lot of the black-owned businesses, they didn't meet those criterias. Even though they submitted a handful of information, they still didn't meet it, And, going forward, I hope that if they approve this second stimulus, yes, this second stimulus that we are all, that most of us is waiting for, I hope that they, improve it and they will give another round of the PPP loans and, will be issued to all of the businesses who were shut out because they can reapply again. And hopefully they'll change up some of the stipulations when it comes to meeting the criteria's government. You know what I'm saying? I hope that is the case. Now throughout all of this, we can look at it on the positive side. There is a positive side to it. Some, just like I said, businesses were able to bounce back from those PPP loans. That money that they got, that free money. Well, it's not free. They had the EDIL loan, which was, free. It was a grant and they gave that out. A lot of people was hopping on that one because you can get $1,000, if you, own just, a regular cart, just selling hot dogs, or if you had like, a little side hustle, at home, you could apply for the EDIL grant. Yes. Who's to say that they're going to include this in the second stimulus this time around? But, it was a lot of people getting approved for that PPP money. Some businesses that was able to withstand the pandemic despite the hard hit small business model at home, I'm saying, in your community, Yes. Local professionals and automotive services held up better than other industries. Most consumers are, choosing to stay home, just like I said, over, putting that footwork in, and going out to support the local establishments physically, as home and professional services such as landscapers, contractors, and lawyers see a much lower closure rate than clothing retailers and even home decor businesses. Yeah, that's for real. And the auto and towing services also reportedly a relatively low closure rate too. Consumers still need these services. We still need those services. Through the rise of the virtual consultants, a lot of people are teleworking at home. So there is a need for a lot of telestuff. A lot of work is being, developed. It's a lot of new stuff and a lot of new things. People are coming up with innovative ideas, just to work from home. A lot of virtual stuff. And, contactless stuff as too, is added with that as well, because it's like, it's added with that socially distanced services. That's what it's called. It's going to be called that now, socially distanced services. These businesses have been particularly on the top rise, just like I said, during this time. Yes. And you can look into all of the different businesses out there. I wish that I could have done more research on that, just to put a list of all the businesses out there that are on the rise to, being virtual. A lot of businesses, if you ever looking for work, maybe you have a skill. I know what is on the rise. It's a lot of social work. A lot of social workers on the rise that people are wanting to, whoever, has a social psychology degree, a therapist degree, that is also on the rise as well. And on top of that, my son, he's a certified personal trainer, and he's young, and a lot of people are requesting him, because we are all at home. And a lot of people is picking up weight, like myself, what I'm saying? Yes, like myself, but, we are, looking forward to having those different services at home, those different businesses. And other small businesses are already well suited for takeout, such as pizza places, coffee shops, and delis. Are staying afloat better than other, those restaurants that you like to dine out at, Yes, because just like I said, everybody is staying at home and they're using DoorDash and they're using Grubhub and, they're using all of those, Uber Eats, all of those services, just to get their food. Yelp averaged the types of restaurants we thought would withstand the impact officially did not have the biggest closures include, the breakfast and the brunch places, sandwich shops that don't include takeout, so those are the places that, we thought would withstand, some of those places. Like your favorite restaurant, just like I said, that you like to sit down and dine in. Those are, folding. They're folding under pressure. And, it's a shame just to see our favorite shops, that we normally frequent on a daily basis just close. You go around there, you're so used to going to your favorite donut shop, and then you go around the corner and it just says, sorry, we are closed permanently. And, getting back onto the big corporations like the Gap Inc., at least 225 locations are expected to close before the end of this year. Yes, the Gap. Yes. I used to work for the Gap back in the day. I worked there for like 5 years, and I worked in Georgia and I worked in Philadelphia, and I was a stock associate because I didn't want to be out on the floor because, you know, I'm very introverted person, didn't want to be the greeter, but guess what? I was the greeter. You know, on the holidays, greeting people and asking people to come in, but eventually they bumped me back to stocked. Yes. Thank you. My Gap memories working for the Gap. But however, yes, they're slated to close before the end of the year with an additional 75 closures scheduled for 2021. And right along with the Gap, guess what, guys? Banana Republic branded stores nationwide as well. Yes. So, you know, be on the lookout for that because it's going to be sales. You know, they got the 30 to 60% off and, you know, and so forth. You know, be on the lookout for that, guys. You know, because the Gap, you know, they have good jeans. I love their jeans and their sweats. You know, I love going there for that. But, you know, of course, eventually I migrated over to Old Navy. Like my daughter, you know, she buys expensive jeans. My middle daughter, she loves buying those G-Star jeans. Oh my God. Yes, those G-Star jeans cost $100 and up. You know, and you know, they're supposed to be good jeans, but however, I stick with, you know, Old Navy jeans. Those jeans been, you know, they have been doing me good for the past couple of years. You know what I'm saying? You get some people that don't like them, but I personally like them. I mean, that's just my opinion. But however, this closure will be most likely inside of your local mall. Yes, your local mall. You know, and this is as a part of a company-wide restructuring of its brick and mortar footprints. Yeah, so, you know, just like I said, you know, those companies are falling by the wayside too as well. You know, and I wouldn't be surprised that many more companies will trickle down the line, you know. You know, despite of being the sector that is 6 times smaller than restaurants, you know, like those small brick and mortar shops, you know, I was watching a YouTube video, and this video was filmed in New York, and the person who films these videos in New York, he was born and raised in New York. I believe he was born and raised, or he came there. I'm not sure. I'm not too sure about his backstory. But however, I was watching the videos, and he goes around New York City, from Lower Manhattan to the Bronx to Jamaica Ave to South Street, Seaport, and many more destinations in New York. And he talks about the attractions, nightlife, and some histories and so forth. His name on YouTube is called Action Kid. Yes, Action Kid. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Action Kid. People watch him from all over the world, and they give this guy money, okay? You know what I'm saying? They give this guy some money. You know, I saw one episode, they gave him $300. Now, this man, he walks all around the different parts of New York City. Yes, and you know, I just want to give a shout out to Action Kid. I don't know if he ever listened to many of my episodes, but however, his content is amazing, showcasing New York. And, you know, the metro city is big, you know, for those who know about New York, that is a big city, you know, and their effort at a continued rollout of the indoor dining is massive, and if you look at some of the video, and you know, because it's worth watching those videos and just to see how they handle it. You know, it's most because the reason why I like watching them is because, you know, I like to see, you know, how New York, as being one of the metropolitan cities, bounces back from all of this. You know, I like to see how they're going to do it, you know, because they're so close knit, they're so small. You know, and with the COVID cases was really massive at the beginning, you know, and seeing all the deaths in New York, it was very disheartening. And then on top of that, there's a lot of small brick and mortars there, lots of them. I would love to see how they bounce back. And if you look at the videos, you will see how the restaurants in New York Cities are, hanging on like a thread. And with this attempt to keep these restaurants, businesses alive in this pandemic, as well, right outside of it, you could just see, it makes you just want to just go there and say, hey, I want to go support them. But however, just look around in your town, in your city, or even your country, because just like I said, you guys, you're all listening to my podcast all over the world. You can support some of your businesses where you're at home, and while it's hard to say when we can expect business closures to stabilize, there is a continued endeavor to see businesses successfully adapt to these uncertain times over the countless months. And all, of course, thanks to their own hard work, for the ones that did bounce back from this pandemic, through their innovation and, of course, the local policy changes, and most definitely with the right government funding like the PPP money, for small businesses. And right along with us balancing the practices that the government has stated to us, the social distancing stuff and other responsibility, safety measures to ensure, that they can stay open. Don't you want your favorite shop to stay open? Even if it's not a restaurant, it could be your favorite small clothing store, boutique that you go to, and of course, the general public, we go out and support our local businesses, all those small businesses within your community, we support them, and I feel as though that, that's why I wanted to talk about this episode, is because we need to support small businesses because they're folding. These businesses that people dream, they had a dream that's something that they wanted to do one day. They wanted to open up their own hair salon. They wanted to open up their own, sandwich shop, their own vintage store, or whatever the case may be. That was just someone's dream. And now their dream is shattered because of this pandemic that has taken over. So support your local business, guys. All right, guys. Now here you have it now. Monday randomness sound off, guys. Yes. I want you all to tell me if you're interested in this, this addition to my Are We Here For Mondays, guys. Yes. Let me know. Yes. Send me a message and let me know if this is of interest to y'all. So, I'm just going to get briefly into my Monday sound off randomness, brief. Just like I said, I'm going to be winding down, with the end of the year. Recap of all of my episodes at the end of the year and the interviews that I had. And I'm also going to be doing a playlist on Spotify. And I'm going to try to figure out, because I know it's a way you can do one on Apple. Try to, do a playlist on Apple as well for you Apple, iTunes users, Yes, I'm trying to do a playlist of all the songs that was featured, the intro and outro songs only, that was featured on every single one of my episodes for this year. And the only reason why I'm doing that, because, just like I said, I'm a music person. I'm a music head. I'm a singer-songwriter. You know what I'm saying? And I love music. If you follow me on Gina Like Soul Music, follow me also there on Gina Like Soul Music, and you can go to my website. You can go to my website also Gina Lock Soul. Gina Lock Soul. I have three Instagram accounts. Okay, I don't want to get, because I know I'm mentioning different things, and I want you guys to get confused. So now my first two Instagram accounts, which focus on specifically on my music career, guys. Yes, my music career. First one is just my personal page. It is a personal page. It's Gina Lock Soul. You know, people say, well, why you just didn't name it Regina? But you know, it's a lot of Reginas in the world. But however, I just named it, you know, Gina Lock Soul. And that has been my page for, you know, my Instagram for a couple of years now. Yes, it's been my Instagram for a couple of years. I don't even remember when I first joined Instagram. It had to been probably back in maybe 20, I don't know. But anyway, it was a couple of years ago that I joined Instagram. So Gina Lock Soul has been my page. And in the bio, you can go to my website. And that is my music website. And I'm going to be revamping that website pretty soon. It used to be .com, you know what I'm saying? Well, however, the sister don't have a coin right now. So it's a free website that I use on Wix. On Wix, they have an option to where you can have, you know, a website. You know, it's a working website, guys. And, you know, it has my music on there. And it also has a bio, a little bit of bio about me. So if you want to know about my music career and a little bit about why I started music, then by all means, go to Gina Lock's Soul. Gina Lock Soul on Instagram, and in the bio you can click there and then you will see my website. And now the second Instagram that I just recently started, it's just all things Gina Lock Soul Music. It's everything that has to do with my music career, my endeavors. If I go to the studio, if, you know, I sing, you know, if I sing at open mics or wherever have you, and latest releases, when I drop my EP, you know, music, everything Gina Lock Soul Music. Oh, and I also forgot to mention that on Gina Lock Soul Instagram, I also might change up my bio, because I also have a YouTube channel, just like I mentioned too in my previous episodes. I have a YouTube channel. So, you know, trying to get back to that hopefully in 2021. I'm going to be expanding the Creative Lips Podcast to YouTube and incorporate everything all in one, guys. Yes, all in one. So that's Gina Lock Soul. That's my personal page. And then everything, all music, Gina Lock's Soul Music, guys. Yes, Gina Lock Soul Music. Gina Lock Soul and Gina Lock Soul Music. And that's a new page that I just developed for my music brand. And, you know, I always use the hashtag I brand myself. Yes, I do.
Pull up my select.
I do. I brand myself. Not under any record labels, not interested. Had a deal before. You know, maybe I will get into that maybe later on down the line. Maybe next year. Next year, I will talk about my experience in the music career and who I know in the music career. Yes, I know some names. Yes, name dropping. Yes. But however, you know, it's, you know, those two Instagrams. And of course, you all know it's the Creative Lips Podcast. Yes, and that is my baby, you know, right alongside with my music. But Creative Lips Podcast, you know, be sure to follow me on all of those, guys, and help, you know, those grow, you know. And just like I said, I am a person, if you follow me, okay, I'm not big on that stuff. You know what I'm saying? If you unfollow me, you just unfollow me. I really don't care. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't be on the gram a lot. You know what I'm saying? I don't be, you know, doing all the crazy stuff. I don't know if you go to Gina Lock Soul on my stories. I love posting all my stories on Gina Lock Soul. Gina Lock Soul always do inspirational stuff, you know, because that's all that stuff that I do. I don't do it for GP. You know, I don't do it just for that. You know what I'm saying? I don't do it just for people, you know, clicks and views, and for people to like me, follow me. Oh, she's nice. No, this is me. I'm genuinely that person. So everything that you see out there, You know what I'm saying? Everything that you see out there on my stories and what I post is me. That's what I'm into. That's what I'm about. And it's what I believe. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to put that out there. Okay? All right. Yeah. Squash that. You know what I mean? Because some people, they want to know. I don't post a lot of pictures of myself, of my body. You know what I'm saying? I'm not fat. You know what I'm saying? But I am thick, If you go to Gina Like Soul Music, you know what I'm saying? And I think I had some pictures of my body on the Gina Like Soul. But however, yes. Yeah. But however, I just don't do a lot of stuff. I don't showcase a lot of stuff because I don't need to. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's not what I'm about. I am, a kind-hearted person. You know what I'm saying? But I can pop off when shit needs to pop the fuck off. You know what I'm saying?
So fucking
Yeah. Definitely. You know what I'm saying? So, I just wanted to say that. I wanted to say that. But however, go support those Instagram guys. You know what I'm saying? But just like I said, if you follow me, unfollow me, I really don't care. It's just social media at the end of the day. It's just there. I'm more so a type of person that's in person. I like to talk to you over the phone. I like to meet you in person. You know what I'm saying? So, it's just social media. I just use social media, to promote my podcast, to promote my music. And that's, and that's it. You know what I'm saying? I don't get into too much of the politics and all that stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? And coming of the first of the year, people always do, or at the end of the year, it's either or. People start unfollowing a lot of people. They call it the cleanse or whatever, getting rid of the old and with the new or whatever. I plan on doing that. Just minimizing my followers down to the minimum, just the minimum at best, and, people who really genuinely support me and support my endeavors. I'm not here for, a lot of the fake shit. You know what I'm saying? I know it was the artist Kalani. I don't know if you are familiar with Kalani. Kalani just recently unfollowed everyone. Yeah, she just recently unfollowed everyone. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, she did. And and I was like, wow, okay. Why did she do that? But she had put up another post and she had said that she done that because she's want to be on a spiritual level, want to be on a more positive level because she see all these people, all this drama that's going on. Of course we know with the Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez debacle, that's died down just a little bit but not really, and all of the stuff that's going on in the world. You see that on your feed, whoever you follow, you see that. But, of course, they also say, Instagram also has this option where you can mute people. You can you can restrict them. Instead of unfollowing them, you want to be that outright. You know what I'm saying? And, but sometimes you can do that. I guess if that's what you want to do. But me, I'm just altogether just delete social media altogether. Why don't you do that? But, you need it for your fans. Just like I said, I need mine, for the supporters, for my music, to get the word out there because that's what's in social media. That's how we're connecting. That's how we're talking to each other, through Instagram, through Twitter, through Facebook. I don't use Facebook at all. I can't stand Facebook. I hate it. I hate Facebook with a passion, honestly. I wish I could get off of Facebook and take my music and everything with it. I'm not on there personally. I'm incognito on there, actually. You don't even know when I'm on there. I have to be on there so I can have my music on there. Because in order to have a personal page, you have to have, in order to have a business page, you have to have a personal page, So, but if you can find me, you know what I'm saying? Then, hey, yo.
Pull up my select.
You know, I may let you follow me. I may not. Depends on who you are. You know, it depends on who you are. You know, I don't follow everybody. You know, there's just some crazy people out there, you know. But, however, you know, that was just basically it with, you know, my randomness, guys. Yes, just basic stuff today, that I, have been going through, and, things that I wanted to talk to you guys, about, you know what I'm saying? So now let's get into it. All right, there you have it, guys. Yes, that was my commentary for episode number 62, guys. Yes, episode number 62, guys. Yes, not 61, not 63. Yes, 62, guys. That damn Mercury retrograde, yes. Yeah, but however, are we here for it or are we not here for the closure of all of the businesses, the small brick and mortars that's in your hometown? Are we here for it or are we not here for it, guys? I know I'm definitely not here for that shit. Definitely not here for that. I hope that, the government, or some type of funding can help these small businesses, can help them stay afloat. And maybe you never know, maybe the ones that have closed, maybe they can help them open back up. You know what I'm saying? You never know how things can bounce back. You never know. But guys, I really appreciate you all tuning in with me for listening to the Creative Lips Podcast, guys. Yes, I thank you guys for listening to me. And I appreciate all of your support. And, help this podcast grow. If you like this commentary, yes, by all means, follow me on all of my social media, guys. Follow me on Instagram at CreativeLipsPodcast, guys. Yes, guys. And also add this episode to your favorite podcast streaming platforms, guys. Come on. Yes, leave me that 5-star rating and a review. Yes, guys, do that. Yes, I appreciate you all. And just like I said, I am going to be changing up my podcast, in the coming year, adding new additions and maybe possibly a second host, guys. You never know. We'll see. And I'm also going to be dropping my debuted single, Gravitate, guys. Yes. Have a listen on Music Fridays. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. Join me on this Friday for Music Fridays. And guys, follow me on Twitter. Because you want to know what, guys? I post stuff there too. Sometimes I do, but I do. All right, guys. Until next time.
You are now listening to episode 62 of the Creative Lips